This is the Blood Red Podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Blood Red Podcast on Friday, ahead of the big one, a huge showdown in the Premier League on Sunday, of course, between Liverpool and Man City at Anfield. I'm Sean Bradbury to host this one, and with me I have a hat-trick, the perfect hat-trick I like to think of. On my left, Dan Kay. Dan Kay, how are you doing?
I'm very well, Sean. Very excited for Sunday.
Excellent, it is. Well, yeah, it's a big game. Doyley, how are you doing?
I'm very excited for Monday.
The game itself, you can take or leave at this stage.
Just get over it.
Good. And of course we have Paul Gorst. Gorst, how are you getting on?
Yeah, and I'm a bit more like Dan than I am with Doyley at the moment. Looking forward to the big one on Sunday, and looking forward to this pod.
Excellent. Well, we'll crack on. We'll start with you guys to the far left there and take a look at Jurgen Klopp's press conference, which was earlier today. Gorsty, what did you make of it? What was his demeanour? How was Mr. Klopp looking ahead of City?
I thought he handled it quite well, actually, because any chance that we can get, when I say we, I mean the press as a blanket statement, to talk about Pep Guardiola with Jurgen Klopp, it's always a big winner, isn't it? And he was always going to get quizzed on loads of things, but I thought there was two topics that he handled superbly, which I thought was the bus stuff. Manchester City have spoken to Liverpool this week about safety concerns about the bus on its arrival to Anfield, and Klopp was asked about it because obviously the Champions League quarter-final 18 months ago when a few fans lobbed a few flares and bottles at the bus, didn't he? He handled that well. He said, we take responsibility for it. It wasn't us, obviously, but the fans were including as us, and we have to ensure that it never happens again, and he urged the fans to get into the ground early, get in there handy, and basically create an atmosphere that's going to help Liverpool thrive to get that massive win on Sunday. And he said everyone's got to be at their best, including the hot dog guy. Everyone's got to bring their best performance on the day. So I thought he handled that quite well, and also the questions on Sean Cox as well. Obviously, we know Sean was attacked by the Roma fans outside of Anfield in April 2018. It's been an uphill battle for him and his family ever since, hasn't it? He's been left with brain damage, but happily he is able to attend Anfield on Sunday. And Klopp said it was probably his lowest moment that he's felt at Liverpool when he heard that news about Sean being attacked. But on the flip side, the news that he is well enough to travel to Anfield this weekend has probably been the highest point of his Liverpool reign. So I thought he handled those two questions particularly well. And he also spoke of his enduring respect for Pep Guardiola and Manchester City. And he said he doesn't admire many teams, but he respects them. And City are one of the top ones there. So it's all. I thought he handled it all very well.
Mm-hmm. Doyley, you were there as well. Do you concur? Does Klopp seem like a man who's ready for the challenge that awaits on Sunday?
He's become very good at, with the exception, as Gorst just said, about the Sean Cox stuff and the team coach. Is it a coach or a bus, by the way? I can never really get my head around this.
I suppose it's a coach, isn't it?
So it's not a bus.
But then I'd probably say bus welcome.
I don't think you'd be able to use your save away second.
Yeah. You wouldn't be getting a 10-8 to Anfield, would you, with the Man City players? Anyway, other than that, he's become very adept at not saying anything in these open press conferences, but different when he actually, to one side, as many people who listen to this podcast know, the way that it works is that when he speaks to newspapers, including Paul afterwards, it's in a separate little chat that they have. But in the open thing to the television, he says a lot without saying anything particularly controversial. It wasn't always like that when he first started. Not controversial, but sound bites, basically. He came up with a lot of them, didn't he, for the first couple of years when he was going through. And now it's more, he just wants everybody to concentrate on the game. And that's part of the reason why he was saying all that about he doesn't want to be, bothered about anything happening to the Manchester City team coach. I mean, he didn't say it, but he just wants Man City to have a hostile reception when they actually step out onto the pitch inside Anfield, or within the rules, the limits, just basically the atmosphere that Anfield is for so many of these big games. Look at Barcelona on last season, things like that. So I think that's what he was calling for there. I mean, in terms of everything else, there wasn't really much that he said that was out of the ordinary. He said the stuff about, he called Pep the best manager in the world. Wherever he goes, he makes a big impact on the teams that he manages, and he said that before. So I think he was going out of his way not to stir the pot and as much as it needs to be, because some games don't need, hyping up. You have to see what Sky are doing this week with their old, Super Sunday Star Wars nonsense, Liverpool and Man City. I mean, there's every chance, which we'll come to later on, there's every chance it could be 0-0 again. Yeah. And there's a very good reason why that would be 0-0. And as I said, we can discuss that a bit later on, I guess. But, it's a game that doesn't need hyping. And I think everyone's just get on with it. Let's see what happens.
Mm. Given how much is riding on this one, Dan, and like Doyley says, it's not a game that needs much hype. Were you kind of impressed by how relaxed Klopp did seem?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, he's got a fair degree of experience in managing the build-up to enormous football matches like this. And not just since he's in the 3 and a bit years that he's been at Anfield. He took Borussia Dortmund to the Champions League final and 2 Bundesliga titles. And obviously, how many cup finals has he had? 4 cup finals since he's been at Liverpool? And in terms of actual cup finals, whether it's a trophy,
Europa League, League Cup, 2 Champions Leagues.
Yeah, I think we've got Super Cup as well.
Yeah, the Super Cup, Charity Shield. But also untold numbers of big league games, big semi-finals, big quarter-finals. So he's an experienced manager. And I think, as the lads have said, I watched most of it. And I saw a fair bit of Guardiola's as well, actually, before I came into work today. And I thought Jurgen in particular just gave off the right kind of vibe. He had, relaxed but focused. And I think that's what he will want and expect from his players on Sunday afternoon. And I see no reason to assume that 48 hours basically till they actually kick off, near as damn it. But these are honed, experienced, professional winners. And on both teams, to be fair. And as Doyley's alluded to, as we might get on to, it might not be the all-seeing, all-dancing spectacle that Sky in particular would like it to be. But as I think Guardiola said at one point when he was asked about the Anfield atmosphere and is it going to be, how much of an impact can it have, blah, blah. And he kind of sidestepped it a bit, made one slight passing reference to the coach business. But the key thing that struck me there was that he said, ultimately, we want to play in atmospheres like this. This is what you're in football for, to play in these huge matches that matter to millions of people. So it's mouthwatering. I really can't wait.
Gorsty, the last point I guess to touch upon in terms of Klopp's press conference then was injury updates. Bit of a mixed picture and bad news on Matip especially.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything unsurprising, was it? He was asked about Jordan Henderson, who shaking off his illness to come through, and I expect he'll play. Xherdan Shaqiri's still injured, and Joe Matip, as we pretty much guessed. So, I mean, it's a disappointment for Liverpool not to have him at centre-back, but I don't think it was one that caught many people by surprise. That knee injury just seems to be lingering, doesn't it? And Klopp doesn't really give any time frame on when he'll be back. He just takes it game by game and just says he's not available. So it's a toss-up then between Joe Gomez and Dejan Lovren, isn't it?
And we'll move on to our team selection later. But then let's move on to Guardiola's press conference then. Now, Doyle, obviously you guys were at Melwood for Klopp before, so this was followed literally hot on the heels, like 15-20 minutes after Klopp had finished. Pep Guardiola faced the media and took his questions, and the big news that came out of that was that Guardiola has said at least that Ederson is definitely out on Sunday and that he can't play. How significant do you think that is, and do you think it's definitely true?
I don't think it's definitely true, no. I also don't think it'll be massively significant, because I can't see Liverpool having a game where they're going to have about 15,000 shots against Manchester City. And Bravo's not the worst goalkeeper in the world. So it'll only be significant if it ends up being a game of such small margins that he ends up making the kind of mistake that he made in midweek, which, by the way, wasn't a sending off, really, was it? No. But the fact is, what was he doing out there in the first place? So that might be something that Liverpool might look to prey on. I mean, you could say, well, Manchester City's defence is going to be playing in front of a goalkeeper who hasn't played all that much in recent years, but a lot of them have played with him before.
Train with him every day.
Exactly, they train with him every day, so it's not going to be completely alien.
Was he man of the match in the Community Shield?
He made a couple of good saves, didn't he?
Well, we bashed him second half.
Exactly, yeah. So there you go. So the
recent form.
I completely forgot he played in that game, actually. Yeah, yeah. So Liverpool did well then, but he did well as well. So he's not anywhere near as bad as I think some people thought that he was at times. But I'm pretty sure Manchester City would sooner have Ederson in goal. Like Liverpool, well, Adrian did well. They did much happier with Alisson Becker being in goal. So is it going to make a difference? Yeah. Is it going to make enough of a difference? Probably not. Also, I think Ederson will play anyway.
It's distinctly possible. Another player who got a mention actually in both press conferences, Dan, was Raheem Sterling. Klopp was asked about him, the impact he's had on games against Liverpool, the type of player he is, and obviously he scored in the Community Shield, and I think possibly was that for the first time
against Liverpool.
Liverpool,
I think it was, yeah.
And Pep was asked about him as well. What do you think he'll be going through his mind ahead of Sunday, and are you particularly concerned about him?
If I'm concerned, I'm in love with this Liverpool team, and I think they've got every chance of making all our dreams come true this year. I wouldn't swap them for anyone. But if I do have one concern about, I have total respect and admiration for Manchester City as well. They're obviously an outstanding team, back-to-back Premier League champions. But if there was one danger man that you had to pinpoint, for me it would be Sterling, who over the last 12 to 18 months I think has really now started to develop into the kind of player we all thought he was going to be when he came through the ranks at Anfield at the beginning of this decade. And I think particularly the fact that City do have some injury concerns, they do have some significant absences. I think he will be very much feeling that there is an onus on him now to really step up. I think he's already scored 12, 13, 14 goals this season. He hasn't, I'm loath to say it because you don't want to tempt fate. And it was until you reminded me just before, I'd forgotten that he scored in the Charity Shield. I had in my head that he hadn't actually ever scored against Liverpool since he's left. And, he hasn't massively hurt us yet. But he will have in his mind that this is a prime opportunity to do that in a match that really matters, with Liverpool already being, 6 points ahead after 12 games? 11 games this season. So he's a big player. But let's not forget, Liverpool got plenty of big players who will also be wanting to make a big mark on Sunday. And like I say, I wouldn't swap Sterling for any one of ours, but Liverpool will have to be very aware of his capabilities and do everything they can to shut off supply to him.
Mm-hmm. Of course, both press conferences today were very respectful, as we've said, all the things that we touched upon already that were discussed in them. But obviously, in the build-up to this over the last week or so, there's been a bit of tit for tat, a few things exchanged, talk of diving and tactical fouls between the two managers. What brought that on, do you think? Because it was very different to the talk kind of last season and even before the Community Shield.
Yeah, I think the rivalry's been bubbling under for a while now and between the two fan bases. But in terms of the managers, there's been very little other than mutual respect for so long, hasn't there? And some might argue that's the way it should be. I mean, for years, football fans have been fed on a diet of arguments and snipes with the likes of Mourinho and Alex Ferguson and Kevin Keegan going back years, and Arsene Wenger and Mourinho, Benitez and Ferguson, and that's been the way it's been built for 25 years. And this has been a rivalry that's different because it's one just born out of respect and two clubs who are looking to just be great, essentially. But I think the mask slipped a little bit, didn't it, last week when Guardiola found that Liverpool had fought back and they were still 6 points ahead. And he just went on the attack. And what I thought was the most interesting about calling Mane a diver was someone must have showed him that clip on Twitter after the game, because it was a 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday, so he wouldn't have been able to have seen it. So someone's come up to him and said, "Pep, have you seen this? Mane's been booked for diving." And he's gone on the attack without even being prompted about it, really. He was just asked a vague question about Liverpool fighting back again. And he's had a little dig at Mane. And then Klopp... on the Tuesday, just before the Champions League press conference, he did another one of his written press, and he said, "I'm not even going to mention City's tactical fouls, or maybe I've said too much." So again, that was maybe a little tit for tat and a volley back, and it's been interesting that both managers were quick to kind of, be contrite and say, "Well, it didn't really mean. I've still got great respect for Klopp, still got great respect for Guardiola." But it's interesting because it's never really been like that before, and I think it's probably been Guardiola pushing that a little bit more because he's, for once, on the other side of things where he's got to chase it.
Yeah, what's brought it on is that City are 6 points behind Liverpool. That's the only reason. That's the only thing that it is. It can be the only reason. You saw at the end of last season where it was all very, of course, he said, very respectful. I think we had a disagreement, didn't we? I was like, "Oh, that was quite nice." And you were like, "No, you need a bit of needle. You need a bit of needle." But it was like, "Oh, you're very good. You're very good. You're great. You're great." That kind of thing.
Mutual appreciation.
Basically, yeah. And it started. This season started a little bit like that, but it's kind of just been. It's been building, hasn't it, a little bit? I mean, we mentioned the coach thing before. I think that was more. I think the fans is completely different. I don't think the fans like each other very much for very, very differing reasons. To say Liverpool don't get on with Man United, for example, or Chelsea, very, very different reasons. But in terms of actually the teams themselves, seems to be getting on fine. I mean, it kind of all started probably with the video after the City won the league on the plane. Wow, we never did find out exactly how that came about, what was the context and everything. It didn't look great for them. And while they did apologise eventually, it wasn't the most convincing of apologies, shall we say, from the club, not from Guardiola. He was like, look, we can't, this is out of order. But the club, that's the problem, is with City, it's hard to separate the club from the team. And I think there's a bit of an issue there that everybody's got a massive respect for the way that they play football. Okay, tactical fouls, but let's be perfectly honest, a lot of teams do that. It's not a big deal. They're not holier than thou, you know what I mean? Like, this is how teams win games. But the club itself, Manchester City, is a bit of a different beast. And I think that's where a lot of the, shall we say, angst lies. It's not really directed at Pep or really at the players for Manchester City, but you can't stand there and start jeering the opposition chief executive and chairman, can you? You know what I mean? It's like they're not the ones that are out there every single day. It's the players and all that kind of stuff and the fans. So there you go. So I think that's where this whole Man City Liverpool thing's come. And Guardiola getting a little bit edgy, a little bit nervy. That's why he came out with those things. And to be fair, all this season he's been doing it every single time. Well, the 2 times that City lost in the league this season, first thing he's saying is, congratulations to Liverpool. Oh, Liverpool. I mean, the second time he got asked specifically, the first time he didn't. He just came out and said it. And I know he's being like, we'll just give it to Liverpool the league now because we've lost 1 game, and it was about 4 games in or something stupid like that. It's a long way to go, obviously, but just interesting. Basically, what Guardiola thinks is what everybody knows, is that this entire league season for the title is going to be between Liverpool and Manchester City.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, Dan, there is a fresh spikiness to Guardiola this season? Is he different to what you witnessed last season?
Well, yeah, I think so. And it reminds me a bit of a comment that Rafa Benitez came out some years ago when the Liverpool-Chelsea rivalry was at its peak, when Mourinho was there. And it was he made a comment along the lines of, we were quite friendly, me and Jose, until Liverpool started winning. And the fact that obviously Liverpool are now very credible contenders to take City's crown off them, obviously with a long, long way to go, with 27 league matches still to play. But the fact that, as Doyle pointed out, he can't help himself almost by coming out. There's an expression that's been doing their ads on the internet for a while, isn't it? Living rent-free in his head. I think that possibly slightly overstates it to an extent. But as Gorsty said, this pretty much unprompted snipe at Mane after the game on Saturday, and there's been various other examples where it's that element of keeping up with the Joneses, isn't it? And I think the rivalry has changed a little bit as well in terms of the supporters. If you remember, it does seem to me that there is a little bit of a chip on Manchester City's shoulders, that they feel they don't get the credit they feel they deserve for the football and the trophies that they've won in the last couple of years. And there may be an element of truth to that, but I think what they have to appreciate, and I think you could see it from the reaction after the FA Cup final last season when they battered Watford 6-0 to clinch a domestic treble, that City fan waded into the press box at Wembley, didn't he? He was given, you're going to put more Salah on your back page now.
Where was he from? Birmingham?
Welsh, I think. And, but there's a reason for that. Whatever, the still ongoing investigations into financial fair play find or don't find, the reality is that, there's a frustration on Liverpool part, certainly, which I can speak of as a Liverpool supporter, because obviously we've got the best team that we've had in generations. In any other era, we'd already have probably a couple of leagues under our belt. But because City have popped up, it makes it that much harder. Doyle mentioned before the rivalry, the comparison between the Liverpool City rivalry and Liverpool United, Liverpool Chelsea. The difference between, say, Liverpool and United is that whatever the enmity and the visceral feeling between Liverpool and Manchester United, there's still, I think, an underlying respect that Manchester United's strength and power in the game has been built over generations of success on the football pitch. The difference there between Manchester City and Chelsea is that basically they're like lottery winners. They've just had like a handout from a rich owner, and particularly in City's case, they're essentially like the sporting arm of a country, of a state. So that would maybe explain the slight kind of spikiness and on our side of it, whereas on the City side of it, obviously they've won all these trophies, played all this wonderful football, and yet there is a perception, and it's important to say it's not just in Liverpool fans, because that City fella wouldn't have waded into the press box if it was just Liverpool fans moaning about it. There's, I think the general football watching public have a slight sense of unease that basically they're just trying to financially bludgeon their way to success. So it's the relationship between the two clubs, sets of supporters and teams, has taken on a completely different dynamic now. But it's fascinating.
The other thing about City fans as well is that when they were not very good, like in the 90s, early 2000s, they were renowned as being great fans because they were in the second, third division,
Absolutely.
They were getting 30,000 at these games. So no one's ever going to go with City fans in the respect of their loyalty to the club. It's just that, I don't know, it's almost like they've found it very difficult to be able to cope with having this team because it's been such a swift turnaround from... being okay, they were up in the Premier League, weren't they, for a few years when the new owners came in and took them over. Was it 2008? Yeah, and did they go down under him or did they come back up? I can't remember. They definitely went down in the 2000s.
City went down in 2001 with Joe Royle. Keegan brought them back up the next year, and they've been up since 02, 03, I think.
Yeah, because they were in the third tier about 99, weren't they? Then they went up, and then they went down, then went up again under Keegan. Did you say? Yeah, that's right. So. Was that 15, 16 years they've been in the Premier League? So that's long enough. And they are a club that obviously very historic. They've been around for 125 years, something like that. It's a long time.
I think they're older than Liverpool.
And they won a European trophy in the early 70s. So
Gornik Zabazzi, Polish team.
Thank you. Cup Winners' Cup. Yes. So, yeah. Yes. So it's not as if City don't have any history themselves. It's just that it's all happened very, very quickly. And the other thing, the bone of contention with City is that they got given a stadium, didn't they? If we're being honest.
Yeah.
They got given a stadium, and I think that gave them a massive kickstart because if they didn't get that, I don't think the owners would have come in because they've had to have paid for and built a new stadium, and we've seen with Everton that's not always straightforward.
One point that I do want to make, Sean, just before you carry on, is we were talking about Sterling then and fans, and Sterling will inevitably come in for boos on Sunday, and I mean, I suppose we're preaching to the choir here on the Blood Red podcast, but that won't be, those boos won't be anything to do with certain sections of the media and how they've reported on Sterling over the last 18 months. I think a lot of fans have got quite a lot of begrudging respect for Sterling and how he handled those particular incidents and those particular stories. If he does come in for boos, it will be solely reserved for how he left the club in 2016, was it?
15.
But yeah, I think it's probably worth clearing that up, even though I know a lot of Liverpool fans will know that the reason entirely.
And also because he's quite good at football.
Yeah,
and you need to try and put
it's kind of laced with fear.
Yeah, exactly.
And it won't faze him. He won't be one bit bothered.
He's great, isn't he?
He is. He's very good.
Yeah.
Last question I want to put to you then on the rivalry and the nature of the balance of power between the two clubs. Obviously, we've talked about how it, I guess in some ways, how it compares to an Everton or a Man United rivalry, which is much more ingrained, much more historic, and like Dan says, it's their meteoric rise. It's been fueled by recent injections of cash, makes it a very different thing. But go down the line on this. Do you think this is now the biggest game in world football, given the stature of the two clubs? Dan Kay, first of all.
I think right now, yes, it is, because I think they probably are the best two teams in world football. In terms of the biggest game, I mean, I think certain fixtures, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Man United, Celtic, Rangers, will always have a global resonance and deep meaning to the teams involved. But in terms of people switching on to watch, wanting to see the best teams, the best players, the people at the top of their game at the minute, I think these are the two. Yeah.
It's interesting because this weekend it's Juventus against AC Milan and Bayern Munich
against Dortmund Saturday evening.
Well, this weekend,
so you'd have to say historically those two fixtures are bigger. But Dan's right. In terms of the here and now, these are possibly... In fact, no, I'm going to go and say it. These are the best two teams in the world at the moment.
I think so.
And they'll be playing off Anfield. Suddenly I've got excited for the game. I've been not been saying that. These are the best two teams in the world with two of, if not the best managers in the world. I mean, we're looking at, if it ends up being a Champions League final between Liverpool and City, which we were all fearing a little bit last year, you wouldn't be surprised.
No.
And these two are going to finish in the top two in the Premier League. Is it the biggest game at the moment? Yes. Is it the biggest game overall, though? No.
Ghosty?
Biggest fixture in British football is Liverpool Man U. It's the most watched. It's the clubs with the two biggest fan bases across the world. But right now, United are in the doldrums, aren't they? And Liverpool v City is the two best teams. Not necessarily the two biggest clubs. City are nowhere near in terms of worldwide prestige and heritage, and as Dan says, that does take generations to build. But certainly the biggest, or the best teams, no question, best teams in the world, I'd argue yes. But the two biggest fixtures for me are El Clasico and Liverpool and Man United. But these are the best two teams in the world at the moment.
Who would you sooner beat, United or City?
In terms of what though?
Just like it's a game. It's a game. It's there.
Right here, right now.
It's just a game. It's a game. Right. Any season.
United was the first instinct.
Yeah.
United's visceral, isn't it? It comes from your gut. You know what I mean? Obviously, from people of our era.
Yeah.
25 years of basically playing second fiddle to them. But if obviously we played United 3-4 weeks ago, and we drew 1-1. Now, if you could have said to me, you'll draw 1, win 1, I would have said, all right, we'll beat City this season.
Yeah.
Well, moving closer to the game and looking at things that have happened in this past week. Start with you on this one, Dan. Obviously, the Champions League games in midweek, I think you've got to say they could well be quite significant, given Liverpool played at home a day before, and then City obviously were away the day after. What did you make of that timing? One of the maddest games this season.
The City one,
yeah.
Well, I mean, from a Liverpool point of view, I don't think really you could have asked for it to have gone much better. They didn't win. They didn't play that well from the look of it, particularly in the second half. Did they actually pick up any injuries?
Ederson.
Yeah. Oh, of course, yeah.
Remember that bit we were talking about for ages before?
Oh, yeah. And it just showed that little sense of unease that, I mean, it should be said as well, Liverpool weren't exactly firing on all cylinders ourselves on Tuesday night, but they got the job done. And then we were able to kind of sit back with an imaginary cigar and say to City, well, go on, let's see how you do. So it was a strange set of games because no matter how professional both clubs and both managers and players try to say, well, we're focusing on one game at a time, it's human nature. When you've got a game of this kind of gargantuan nature looming on at the weekend, you wouldn't be human if... And I say that as a supporter because I was in here on Tuesday night, but the impression I got from obviously watching it and speaking to people who went was that everyone just felt a bit distracted. Everyone's minds were on Tuesday, and thankfully we managed to get through ours relatively unscathed in terms of the points and injuries, and they didn't. So I think you'd take that, but it all counts for nothing at 4:30 on Sunday.
I think it was a box ticking exercise for both clubs. I think more so for City because they're going to go through anyway. Liverpool needed to win, really.
True, and that's what that last 10 minutes.
So there was a bit more on it for them, and that's why maybe City's draw, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that's come out of that is Ederson being injured. Oh, by the way, the funniest thing of the season was Kyle Walker at the end. Not just when he went in goal, but when he was, Mendy was saying, just fall on the floor, when he made that save. And, and he was like, oh yeah. And he just delayed drops down about 3 seconds later.
The free kick nearly spilled in his first touch.
Which is hilarious. That's what we should have more goalkeepers playing outfield players going.
It's one of the greatest things in the game. We don't see any.
We need to keep us scoring.
We need to see basically is Alisson scoring
overhead kick,
and then Claudio Bravo getting injured. Not a bad injury, just enough for him to can't finish the game. And then who's third? Is it Scott Carson? Is it Scott Carson? It is, isn't it? Yeah, Scott Carson. And then he gets sent off, and then Kyle Walker's been subbed, so he can't go in goal. So they've got to put Raheem Sterling in goal. They're just down for the top corners.
If that happens, well,
completely forgot they got Scott Carson.
I think Richard Wright's still there, isn't he?
Best not put any signs on the pitch.
For that one.
Chelsea,
last word to you on this one then, Gorst. Do you think the circumstances of midweek, obviously Liverpool playing within themselves a bit, I take Doyley's point, they had to get a win, but they were able to kind of wind it down a little bit, and like Dan said, the eyes were all on Sunday, whereas City being away the next day and having to battle, and it wasn't an extensive amount of time with 10 men, but what was it, 15, 20 minutes?
Wasn't even that, was it?
Yeah. But do you think that will all add up and will be a factor on Sunday?
Maybe. I think Klopp made 6 changes, didn't he? I think there was no Henderson. I think he's probably likely to start. No Andy Robertson, he come off the bench, didn't he? No Firmino didn't play.
He came on for about a minute.
Yeah.
Mane came on for about 15.
We were there, yeah. Mane came on. So, possibly. Liverpool will be a lot fresher than City, who played 24 hours later in Italy. That could be a bit of a factor. Ederson is one of the top goalkeepers in the world. Not having him will be a big bonus for Liverpool, even if Doyle doesn't think it's that big a deal.
Well, I think he's playing, so it's okay.
Yeah, you do actually. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, all the little signs are all little plus points for Liverpool, aren't they? All just little things just to take into this game, and I completely agree with Klopp actually when he said that everyone on Sunday has to be at their best. I think the fans need to make it like a real European game, and I don't know whether he said it in the press conference or the little breakouts after it, but he mentioned Anfield under the floodlights, and I think Klopp's got a big thing about evening games in Anfield and the atmosphere that can generate. So he's hoping that it's going to be an incredible atmosphere, and I think we all are, because that'll be another big plus point for Liverpool to take into that game.
Well, let's focus then now for a bit on the approach that we think, well, Liverpool but also City will take. Doyle, we'll start with you on this one. We've already mentioned last season how it kind of descended into a bit of a tactical battle, chess match, if you like, 0-0, and it wasn't the greatest game of football, but you can kind of see how it ended up in that situation, especially given that the teams were level, weren't they, on points going into the game? So, everything added up to that. How do you think this one will shape up? I mean, City I think they're yet to play anyone who's in the top 6, home or away, are they? So, have Liverpool got the chance to almost kind of really go at them and spring a bit of surprise on them?
They have. I think it'll be exactly the same as last season. I think it'll be completely the same. City cannot afford to lose. They cannot afford to lose. If it goes to 9 points, then you'd have to say even 12 games in, Liverpool have got to be massive favourites for the title. Admittedly, as we've said before, there's quite a long way to go, but 9 points is a lot at that stage, especially a team that would have only lost 1 in 50 or something like that.
49 at the moment.
Yeah, so it'd be 50, wouldn't it? Yeah, 1 in 50. So, and it's still psychological impact of losing. They'd have lost 3 in 12, and with, as you've just mentioned, they've not played anyone from the top 6. They've got an awful lot of hard games to come, City. So the injuries have come at the wrong time for them in that sense. So they'll be just desperate to get out of Anfield with a point, I think. For Liverpool, it's a bit different. I think they know they could put out a big statement, but they also know, and Klopp kind of alluded to this during the press conference, he was talking about, you can't just be on the offensive. You have to look at the other team's strengths and try and counter them, which he doesn't normally say. He'll just normally say, we just play our own game, kind of thing. So I think he's already looking at that. He knows that. I think he's kind of preparing the crowd not for it to be like, say, the Champions League game, but it was 3-0 or the 4-3 or the 4-3 where Liverpool just kind of had little spells where they went for it, which is not going to happen this time, I don't think. I think Liverpool haven't been like that anyway all season, and I think it's almost like Liverpool have been building up to this game in the sense that a lot of the games have been close, a lot of the games have been tight, they've had to scrap their way through things, and it's going to be a little bit like that. Or it could just be this is the day where Liverpool suddenly realise, hang on, we've got all our players playing here, we can just go for this now. We can do something. So I think if Liverpool score first, it does not make the game interesting. If City score first, tough for Liverpool. Very tough, because then City, that's the game plan, is everybody back, fill all the holes, and they're a team that's probably just as good at Liverpool at counter-attacking or transitions, as people say these days. Transitions is just counter-attacking. It's the same thing. It's not new. It's always been counter, or they've hit them on the break. So City are very, very good at that. So, first goal, and then, of course, that's why it'll be so tight, because both teams will know the first goal is so important and they will not want to concede it.
Where do you stand on it, Gorst? I mean, there's an argument as well, I suppose, in terms of obviously some of the unfortunate injuries City have suffered, but the position that they're in, as Doyle outlined there, is, have Liverpool faced the City team that have been in kind of, not disarray is the wrong word, but as kind of weaker position as this before, do you think?
Don't think they have, actually. Thinking of all the games over the last few years, no, I mean, Liverpool certainly haven't played City as in a stronger position. And I think you might be able to argue the same with City. So of the 11 games they've played so far, they've lost to Norwich and Wolves, and they've drawn with Tottenham, and they haven't played anyone in the top 6. Liverpool are 6 points clear with a chance to go 9. So I think you might have a point there. But you can't underestimate Manchester City ever, because they are the champions. They're going for the 3rd successive title. They've got 198 points in the last 2 seasons. Last season he barely had Kevin De Bruyne, and he's playing well again this season. So it's all just adding up to be something special on Sunday, and I hope it delivers Liverpool's way. I really do. But I think Liverpool, I think both teams would take a draw now, and I think Liverpool would certainly take a draw just to keep the status quo going into the international break. Go back to Palace at the end of November and push on again.
What do you reckon then, Dan? I mean, a draw does feel like it is. If there's a situation where, you know, that could unfold quite easily, you'd almost think both teams would potentially take that right now. But I guess it's a bit of a risk-reward thing. Do you think the potential reward of in terms of Klopp's thinking, the potential reward of being 9 points ahead will win out, or will that fear of it going down to 3 and City gaining a bit of momentum win out? Which do you think will?
I think, over the last year and a bit, we've seen a more pragmatic Liverpool team. This is not the Liverpool team of 2017-18 that ripped teams apart, but was a bit vulnerable at the back, as we saw, particularly the FA Champions League semi-final when we were 5-0 up and then ended up just scraping through 7-6 on aggregates. This is now a team that knows how to manage matches, knows how to manage seasons, how to manage their legs and their energy. I just think there was a perception maybe a few weeks ago that, with Liverpool already opening up a bit of a lead, that City would have to come and win at Anfield. And I've never kind of, I agree with that. I think if Guardiola walks out of Anfield at 8 o'clock on whenever it is on Sunday night with 6 points behind, I think he'd take that. I just think that, and it could end up being a similar type of game to last season, like Doyle said. But I think the only thing that makes me maybe doubt that is the fact I think we're in a better state than when we were then. Even though we'd started last season very well, I think we won the first 6 or 7 games. I think I'm right in saying the build up to the City game, which was like a month early, it was the last game before the October international break. I think we'd just about drawn at Chelsea the weekend before with Sturridge's last minute curler, and then we'd lost away to Napoli in the midweek with arguably one of the worst performances of the season. And we just seemed in that the City game, we seemed a bit unsure of ourselves, and obviously Mahrez missed the penalty late on. But
I think Klopp admitted at the time that later on he said that they were tired because they also in that batch of games they played Tottenham away and Paris Saint-Germain as well.
And it's not even so much physical tiredness. I would think it's mental tiredness. Getting yourself up for these big games. Also, as well, this was a team that has got to the Champions League final the year before. But obviously it had all gone wrong in Kiev. We brought a couple of players in. Fabinho wasn't really in the team at this point. Alisson was only just kind of finding his feet. This now, though, is a Liverpool team that's, as even Gary Neville has been saying, has been playing title-winning football for the last 18 months. And I think 13 months on, I think we are mentally more capable of dealing with the pressure and the intensity of a game like this. And so I think it'll be cagey from the start, but I think we'll go for it more than we did last year.
Do you think, Dory, that conservatism almost, I'm not saying this Liverpool side are going to pack the defence and really adapt their game for City, but City arguably did do that when they came to Anfield last season. And if Liverpool tried something, I kind of get the sense it would backfire. Do you think that's an argument for them to be quite full-blooded and a full-on Klopp kind of pressing going forward performance?
I suspect how this game goes depends on how Liverpool approach it. I mean, City might turn around and just go do something ridiculous and just massively go for it in the first 10 minutes because they think we haven't got any defenders here, let's just see what we can do. I mean, there's every chance that could happen, but I don't think it will. It's going to be on Liverpool to whatever, how they want to approach it, how bold Klopp wants to be. I think it's going to be almost like a European game, like a first leg where the first 20 minutes the teams are
feeling each other
out. Where are we here? How's this going to go? I think it's something we're just guessing at for now. I think it's something that will change during the course of the game. I think it's one of these games where it will be the first 20 minutes, the first half hour, the first half will dictate how the game ends up, when normally it's the other way around, isn't it? Where it's normally the second half that sorts things out. I think the first half will tell us an awful lot more about how these teams are, and it depends on how much confidence Klopp has in his players and his team. I mean, they've won, was it 10 of 11 games? Is it 10 out of 11? Yeah, it is. Don't turn and drawn the other one, so it's not as if they've not been doing too badly. But this is almost like it's almost like a completely separate game in the sense that none of the other teams are anywhere near as good as Manchester City. No. So I almost think you can almost, not entirely, but almost disregard all the other games. I just think this is just one game. And Liverpool saw in the Community Shield, which I'd also forgotten that Raheem Sterling scored in, by the way. I also forgot Claudio Bravo was playing. I was there, honest. You scored for Liverpool or Matip? Yeah, Matip. Yeah. We saw in the Liverpool second half performance that they know that they can do something to this City team. And that was a City team that was stronger defensively then than it is now. And I also think, just on a separate point, I think Mohamed Salah might do something on Sunday.
Well, he threatened to. The Community Shield, he played very well.
And I thought he had a decent game against Genk without getting the final touch. Some of his decisions weren't great, although he did set up a goal. I just think Salah's building up to something. I think he could do something. If Liverpool are going to win, it's going to be on him.
Okay, well, two things remain. Predictions, which we'll save to the very, very end. But team selection, I think we can just boil this down to, well, it's a couple of decisions, really. Gorsty, we hinted at this before, the biggest dilemma surely is at centre-back, especially in the absence of Matip. Lovren or Gomez, who are you going for?
I'm going to go for Joe Gomez. I think now is the time just to leave him in the team and let him play himself back into the form that he was in before that injury last year.
Doyle?
Lovren, he always plays against Man City.
He pretty much does.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
And plays reasonably well. Dan?
I'm really torn on it, to be honest. My instinct was to say Lovren, because I like Lovren generally, even though he always has a Lovren moment in him. But what Paul just said then about, I forgot, he did play on Tuesday night, kind of got better as the game went on, I thought. And he's got a massive future for us, as wonderfully well as Joel Matip has done. I do see Gomez as being Van Dijk's long-term partner, so I would like to see him reinstalled as a permanent fixture in the team sooner rather than later. It's whether Klopp feels a game of this magnitude is the time to do it. It's a toss of the coin job, as far as I'm concerned.
Gomez played right back last time. Trent didn't play. Yeah. Trent was on the bench because he'd had a bad game in Naples. Can't see that happening this time.
No.
But it's another example of how Liverpool may automatically become a bit more attacking. Because obviously Trent's a bit more of a progressive player than Gomez is. Who are you saying?
I'm going to go with Lovren.
Oh, 2-2.
Right. I think you're right. He's kind of in these. He's had more experience of this type of game, and this will also be. This moves us on to the second point. Will this be the first time Fabinho has started a league game against them? Yeah. I think again, if you've got him screening in front of him, that is a big factor, and will essentially, hopefully allow Liverpool to get away with a little bit more by playing Trent at fullback rather than Gomez. Lovren for me with Fabinho in there, which does lead us on to the midfield question, which is surely it is Fabinho plus 2. So, who are your twos, Gorsty?
I'd like to put Oxlade-Chamberlain in there because he's amongst the goals, and he's actually just won Liverpool's Player of the Month. But I'm going to stick with the tried and tested Henderson and Wijnaldum.
Doyle, do you concur?
I think Klopp will play Oxlade-Chamberlain, Yeah, I think
even with Trent at fullback?
I think he'll play him. But if he plays, that means he has to play Henderson. Okay?
Yeah.
However, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what I'd play. In which, come back to me in a minute.
I see. Like Gorsty, I've got a lot of time for Oxlade-Chamberlain, and I also am a kind of a believer in horses for courses. And the two big games against Man City in the spring of 2018, or winter 2018, he scored 2 big, brilliant goals for us. He's clearly getting close to the player that he was before he got that horrendous injury against Roma. It's again, like with the centre back, I'm sitting on the fence getting splinters in my arse here. It's a real toss of the coin job. But I suppose the fact that we are in this position, I think mentally we're more resilient and tougher than we were a year ago, and able to kind of cope with the magnitude of a match like this. Yeah, Chamberlain plays alongside Henderson, and we've seen what a riled up Gini Wijnaldum can do from the bench before, haven't we, against Barcelona? So maybe he'd be the one to miss out for me. Even he scored a cracking goal in midweek. It's nice problems to have for the manager, isn't it? You know what I mean? We've got decent options there now.
I think if it was Matip at centre back, and just you could rely on that defence, perhaps just that slight little bit more. I think maybe then you could sneak Ox in there. But for me, it would be Henderson, obviously Fabinho, and Wijnaldum. So
I think Henderson and no shouts for Milner. I think Milner will be first sub. Actually,
first sub.
He's always he's the best first sub, whether you're winning or losing.
Henderson and I'm going to go Ox. I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah, he's gone for it.
That's Ox, not the Ox.
Right,
because in case Joe's listening later on.
I think everything else pretty much fits into place, doesn't it? Robertson, Trent, no one's doing anything mad up front. Just to check.
No, Brewster.
Sean
Elliott,
Dundee.
No. Harvey Elliott?
No.
Not quite
No.
yet.
Curtis Jones.
Well, all that remains then is predictions. So we'll go down the line the other way this time. So, Gorsty.
1-1.
Doyle.
1-1.
Dan Kay.
2-1 to the mighty Reg, you misery ass.
No, but I was going
to say 0-0, but then Liverpool can't keep a clean sheet.
I'm in danger of becoming like Mark Lawrence, where Liverpool win every game from now until the end of time.
Well, I'll go 2-2 just for something slightly different.
And the only one thinks Liverpool going to win, yeah.
I think Liverpool can win, but then I also think Man City can win, hence the draw.
Both teams can win, you know what I mean? But we asked for prediction. Well, I think Liverpool will win, so we'll see you right on Monday.
I would like to see what happens in the first 10 minutes. Then I'd revise my...
Okay.
All right, so we'll get a cab back here. Should we make it back for the last 20 minutes?
Come back to it.
we were special 20-second pod. Yeah, I think it's going to be 2-1.
Just let me watch the first 80 and then I'll tell you.
Hedging your bets there.
Right then, on that note, we will leave it there, and we will, of course, be back on Monday to pick the bones out of how it does go, this huge showdown between Liverpool and Man City at Anfield. So, bye for now. Nice one.